What happens when a family enjoying a picnic comes face to face with a horrific hobo who's wielding powers from beyond? And then we take a look at the story of a young man traveling on a road trip, passing through the state of Louisiana. But when nature calls and he has to go to the bathroom, he pulls over to the side of the road to look for a place to pee. Little does he realize he's about to meet his soulmate. But this is no ordinary woman. This is the Queen of Spiders. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio.
I'm freaked out. Actually, I'm a lot freaked out.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a ton of stuff to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command with a huge smile on his face. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Douglas Gallery. Woohoo, yeah, we're all clapping. He's just walking in with a creepy smile. Woo, yay. It's a little creepy. Stop smiling now. Douglas. Why is he smiling so much? Is he turned on? Does he have a fetish for clapping? He's like, yay, this is my fetish. No. The reason why he's smiling is because I just remembered the movie Smile 2 comes out this week. He has nothing to do with it. It's not like he made it. It's not like he started it. But I just popped in my head, Smile 2. I really loved the first movie, Smile. This one's about a pop star being possessed by this suicide demon that makes people smile. Douglas is all like, can I stop smiling now? Nope. You have to smile for this whole promo that I'm not getting paid for. I just really like the first movie. So I'm looking forward to Smile 2. And apparently Douglas is kind of into it as well. Look at that giant smile. No, Douglas made a generous donation via PayPal, and he included his name in it. So thank you so much, Douglas. That is why you are going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the merch store or through the Patreon or even donations through PayPal or YouTube, I totally understand. I really, really do. Times are tight. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Douglas, his face is all cramped. He's like, my mouth hurts. Sorry, buddy. Douglas, let's go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy. Everyone climb on board as he drives us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Douglas, take us all the way out to the state of New York. And as he's driving us out there, I want to also remind everybody the Port Gamble Ghost Conference is coming up in Port Gamble, Washington, November 8th through the 10th. 2024. I will be speaking there on the 8th, but stay for the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. If you don't even get there to see me, if you show up a day late, it's totally awesome. It's an awesome ghost conference. The entire town is haunted. Like, there's a ghost story about every house. It's a small town. It's not like a booming metropolis. On the 12th story of that skyscraper, there's the ghost of a janitor. But it's a really cool setup, and I had a lot of fun doing it last year, and I'm looking forward to doing it this year. Port Gamble Ghost Conference, November 8th through 10th. For more information, go to portgamble.com. Douglas is driving us out to New York. Specifically, we're headed to upstate New York. And we're headed back in time, not too far though. We're headed back to the early 1990s. We pull up to this house, seemingly ordinary house in a seemingly ordinary neighborhood. We poke our heads over the fence and we look into the backyard. And we see there's a huge family cookout going on in the backyard of this house. A massive family reunion. All the people are here. You got grandpas and grandmas, aunts and uncles, moms and dads, kids of all sizes running around. But we're going to look at the story of one of these kids. Specifically, we don't have his real name. We're going to call him Danny. He was a young guy when this went on. He doesn't give his exact age. 8. I'm guessing. This is his house where they're having the cookout at. All the other relatives have traveled over. And it's a fun party. Everyone's eating burgers, eating some pasta. Yeah, manja, manja. They're like, who brings pasta to a picnic? They're all cooking it on the barbecue. Oh, mio mayo. Look at it, fell into the fire. Everyone's laughing at the guy who brought pasta. Probably, what's that gross stuff people eat? Egg salad? That's disgusting. And then there is like a gross pasta. It's like cold pasta mixed with eggs or something like that. Is it called like pasta salad? I don't know. People bring gross stuff to barbecues and cookouts all the time. Whenever pasta's cold, it always reminds me of tapeworms or stomach parasites. I can't eat cold pasta. You're like, Jason, that's not even a dish. No one... What cookouts have you gone to where it's fettuccine and eggs? But they're pasta salad. Isn't that a thing? There's egg salad and pasta salad. Anyways, it's disgusting and cold. Right now you're eating some. You're at a family cookout. You got an earbud in. You're all uncontrollably vomiting. Cold pasta reminds me of tapeworms. It does. It's cold. It shouldn't look like that. It's all slimy and slippery, and it's in your mouth. It's all fettuccine, Alfredo sauce, or whatever it is, spraying everywhere. That is the lubricant that the tapeworm uses to move its way through your digestive system. So anyways, Danny's at this family cookout, and it just goes on and on. Everyone's having a great time. Eventually, it's early evening. It's starting to get a little dark outside, but the party's still going on. People are still eating, laughing, enjoying life. Danny's out in the backyard, and the way that it's situated is that his house, his backyard ends where a forested area begins. So the woods is right at his property line. While everyone's eating the food, laughing, sharing stories, Danny is looking out and he sees movement in the woods. He sees someone walking towards the house. Danny said the only way to describe this guy would be he was a bum. He looked like some homeless dude. From the way that his clothes were, he was just completely disheveled. He had a long, dirty beard. And he's kind of walking through the woods towards this house. Danny's surrounded by all of these adults, and they're no pushovers. His grandpa, who's there, is a World War II vet. One of his uncles is a professional boxer, and Danny's father is a lieutenant with the city police. So it's not like he's super worried that there's a hobo in the woods. He's not afraid of this guy. I mean, it may put a damper on the event if he shows up. He's like, oh, I'm your long-lost relative, Johnny Bum. They kicked me out of the family for giving everybody tapeworms that one year. I was really trying to help him lose weight. I caught a bunch of tapeworms and pretended it was pasta salad. You're not scared when you're with a bunch of rough and tumble dudes. People who have been in all sorts of situations and they know how to handle themselves. But as the hobo's getting closer and closer, walking through the woods, Danny's like, oh, like this might turn out bad. Most likely for the bum. Like worst case scenario, he gets yelled at, hey, get off our property. That's the best case scenario. I mean, the worst case scenario is that a fight breaks out. Something crazy happens and this bum gets beat up. Danny's watching this homeless guy get closer and closer as he's walking through the woods. Danny walks up to his mom and says, hey mom, look, there's a guy coming. There's a guy coming towards us in the woods. No one else had seen him up to this point. Danny's mom looks into the woods, and sure enough, she sees this hobo getting closer and closer to the house. She immediately begins yelling to her husband. She begins yelling for Danny's dad. She goes, honey, look! And she points out, Danny's father turns and looks to see where his wife is pointing, takes one look at this disheveled old homeless man walking through the woods, and says, everyone, oh my God, everyone, get in the house! Get in the house! And they do. The party stops, and everyone who was in the backyard runs into the house. And they shut the door. Danny's thinking, like, what? Like, it's just a homeless guy. Like, this is super weird. My dad works for the police. He's a lieutenant. He can make one phone call and have every cop down here in a second. But here's just a bum walking around, and his dad freaked out. So they're in the house now, and they're looking out through a window, and the homeless man walks out of the woods and is now standing in their backyard and looking at all of the stuff, the picnic tables that had all this food on it, barbecue, all the chairs, everything. Like you would expect at a normal family cookout. The homeless man gets to the backyard, walks up to one of the picnic tables, full of food. Everyone left their plates there. I'm sure one or two people came running in with their hamburger. They're like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm hungry. The homeless man walks up to one of the picnic tables full of food, grabs onto the table with one hand, and flips the entire picnic table. Danny's like, okay, what? Well, I don't know what is going on. It's already weird enough. A homeless man scared my dad. Now I can understand why. I just watched a man flip a table. I mean, a picnic table, those things are heavy. Especially back in the 90s when they're all made out of wood. Maybe nowadays they make them out of plastic and stuff, but that was real wood. That was some oak. A tree died for that table, and this homeless man with one hand flipped it over. Danny's uncle is like, I'm going to go out there, dude. I'm going to beat him up. I can do it. As he's peeing his pants, he's like, no one look below my waist. Just look at my hand, punching my other hand. I'm going to go out there and beat him up. And Grandpa, the World War II vet, had to talk the uncle out of it. And the uncle was like, no, I'm going to go. I'm not going to let this guy push us around. Grandpa actually had to block the door to go outside. He goes, son, you're not going out there. Like, were you in the bathroom? I know you just peed your pants, but did you see what just happened? He flipped the table. Yeah, you're a professional boxer. You're not going out there. The bum is standing in the backyard and he's looking around, and then he looks directly at Danny, who's looking out of one of the windows, watching all of this. The hobo turns and makes eye contact directly with Danny, and then smiles. And then the hobo kind of meandered around the backyard a little bit longer until eventually he turned and stumbled back into the woods. This happened when Danny was a kid. Now, years later, he's an adult, and he's like, what was that? What was that sequence of events? A homeless man walking onto your property? Whatever, right? Maybe in the best of times, you invite him over for a piece of pumpkin pie, give him a Sprite, piece of chicken. You know, treat him nice. Best of times. Worst case scenario, he's an enraged bum who's like running around with a knife, stabbing everybody. Somewhere in the middle, there's 1,000 variations in between the murder bum and the mercy bum. But something that never falls on that scale is superhuman homeless man, a superhuman hobo. So how does he even think of this? And Danny, like you and I, there's a key mystery to this story that he's never been able to solve. He said at this point, both his uncle and his grandfather have passed away. And he has talked to his parents about it. A couple of years ago, he asked his mom and his dad, say, hey, do you remember that time we were having that picnic and that homeless man showed up and he flipped the table and everyone ran inside and you, Dad, were like super worried? I never understood why you didn't call the cops. And we just kind of hung out for a while until the hobo walked back into the woods. What was up with that? He says that his mother and father both said they don't remember that. They don't remember that. Which would mean either it's a false memory, it's a dream he confused with a memory, or his parents are lying. Or I guess there's a fourth one. They actually don't remember that. He's like, listen, son, I saw a lot of crazy stuff as a police officer in New York. I wish I could have forgotten more stuff. So he posted the story on the export. It was really interesting. People were talking about weird memories from their childhood, and this was one of his. We covered one earlier this week about the Freddy Krueger and the television set. Put that episode in the show notes. There's two big questions here. First off is, who was the hobo? How did he get superhuman powers? I guess there's actually there's a lot of questions, but who was the hobo is the first question. Who or what was he? But the second question is the father's reaction to it. Now, if you put me or you in this situation, and you saw a homeless man walking through the woods towards your house, if you wouldn't run away, you might give him some food, you might be cautious, but you wouldn't say, everyone get in the house, unless you knew who that homeless guy was. Even the grandpa was like, you're not going out there to tangle with that guy. The uncle's like, I'm going to go take care of him. Grandpa's like, no, you're not. To me, and I'm interpreting this, let's put on our conspiracy caps for this one. There's no evidence in what Danny wrote, but this is my take on this, is that this was someone that the family had encountered multiple times in the past. The grandpa, like a family curse almost. That's what I read. That's kind of what the feeling I got after I read this story a couple times. Like, this wasn't just a casual, this guy was going to stumble across anyone's backyard. This was some sort of curse for this family. The grandpa had tangled with him at some point. The father knew of this because immediately he saw him. And two, remember when Danny alerted his mother wasn't like, oh, don't worry, honey, that's just the homeless people and they're people as well. Maybe we should make them a plate. No, her first reaction when she looked and saw him was, honey, look. And then the dad looked and he said, everyone get in the house. So it's almost like there was a history there or knowledge before this event that whoever this homeless guy was, he was no match for anybody. Because you would have different people. If I saw a homeless guy walking onto my property, I would be cordial at first until I could gauge some sort of mood of what was going on. But if this guy had stumbled onto my property before, or when I was a kid stumbled across my dad's property, or when my dad was a kid stumbled across his dad's property, however far this could go back, and you knew this was going to be trouble. You had heard stories through your family that there's this guy who, almost like a family curse, beware the bearded hobo wandering from the woods. Beware the man, beware the wanderer. It's like they knew, they had knowledge of this man and what he was capable of. So, like a family curse. It's a very interesting story. If you think about it, just of a weightlifting hobo who's able to flip a picnic table with one hand. Like, that'd be kind of terrifying too, right? He's all, I can bench press 600 pounds, but all I want to do is throttle your throat. But they knew to be worried about him. They knew to retreat away from him even before he showed his strength, which makes me think they already knew what he was capable of. Super interesting story. I would be curious, so Danny wrote this happened to him as a kid. He wrote this as an adult. As his life goes on, if he ends up having a family, if he'll encounter this thing again. And we don't know if the uncle knew of it, or if the uncle was just a little like, oh, I'm a professional boxer. I can beat up this super powerful hobo who's been haunting our family for generations. It ends now. Or if even he didn't understand the magnitude of what he was about to face. Either way, the grandpa wouldn't let him do it. The grandpa knew how dangerous this man was. So did Danny's father. And if he ends up seeing him again, if Danny sees this figure at another point in his life, I think then he will know. Despite his parents ignoring it, despite his parents saying, we don't remember that, if this is a family curse, it will find its way back to Danny. Whether or not his parents ever admit the truth, the hobo will return. Douglas, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We are leaving behind upstate New York. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Louisiana? We're headed all the way down to Louisiana. It's August 2024, and we're about to meet a young man. Let's call him Daryl. He's coming back from a trip where he was visiting his family in Georgia. He lives in Texas, and to make this trip back home, he has to go straight through the state of Louisiana, and he is in BFE. He's just like in the middle of nowhere, coming through Louisiana, and he has to go to the bathroom. You're driving down the road, and you're like, oh, dude, listen, I know I gotta make some decisions, right? I can try to hold it in till I get to the next gas station, but who knows where that's at. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I could pee in this 32-ounce big gulp cup, but I still have some soda in that. And he's all drinking it as he's thinking. He's like, I know what'll help me figure out this urine situation. More fluids. He can pee in a cup while he's driving. It's not recommended, right? It's a horrible way to get in an accident. Not only is your car totaled and your arms are broken, you're covered in piss. He's like, okay, I can try to hold on to the next gas station and hope it's not owned by wrong-turn hillbillies. I can pee in this cup while I'm driving, or, better, safer idea, I'll pull over to the side of the road because I'm in the middle of nowhere, and pull off the side of the road, and I'm just going to pee outdoors. Which, you may not know this, a lot of people find this out accidentally, and it's a horrible lesson to learn. But I have had to tell, because this happened to a relative of mine, who I won't say which relative. But this does happen. You look this up. Fact check this, because you're not going to believe me. You don't believe, you're like, it's superhuman bum. I'm not going to fact check that, but typing this in Google. Did you know that if you go to the bathroom outdoors, if you pee in public, if you pull over to the side of the road, and you're peeing in the bushes, if you're peeing alongside a building late at night, and a police officer sees you, you can get charged with a sex crime. You can actually end up on the sex offenders registry for peeing outdoors. Because the crime is exposing yourself in public. It's not like you're going to do hard time for it or anything like that. But you probably will lose your job because you'll end up on a registry for a couple of years. And you would have to explain to everyone, no, I was just peeing against the wall and the cop came around the corner. And you're like, you got a problem, officer? You're all peeing on the cop. He's like, ah. I mean, they won't always charge you with that, but they can. Because it's public exposure. It's exposing yourself in public. It's a sex crime. It'd be no different than you walking down the street with a trench coat and then like flashing people, opening it up and being like, and then running away in the eyes of the law. So be careful. Be careful. You're all doing it right now. You're all listening to podcasts while you're peeing. There's a SWAT team coming up behind you. Take them out, boys. Yeah, so you got to be careful of that. That's where this story's headed. This story actually is getting far worse. The complications for poor Daryl, he's going to wish he was arrested. But, yeah, be careful. If you really have to drain the main vein, you're better off going to the gas station owned by wrong-turn hillbillies. Or going deep into the woods. Right? You see a bunch of poison ivy over there, you're like, well, at least I'm not going to jail. You're peeing. You instantly swell up. You can't pee anymore. Urine's coming out of your eyes. Anyways, the point is that don't do it. It is a sex crime if you get caught. On to the story. So, Daryl, he really has to go, though. He's like, police officers be damned. He's like, I'm already on like 6 or 7 registries. I'm on the no-fly list. Oh, what's one more? Daryl gets out of the car, and he decides to go pee, and he doesn't go right on the side of the road. He's like waving to people as they're driving by. He's like, keep going. I'm just peeing, guys. He walks a little bit into the woods, but not too far. And he's getting ready to pee, and he notices a little bit further into the woods, he sees this cool, what he describes as a cool-looking hill formation. It intrigues him. He sees this geological thing, these weird-looking hills, off in the distance. Not super far, but not super close either. It's actually next to a swamp. And he's like, you know what? I have to go check out those hills. There's something about that area that I gotta check out those hills. First, I gotta finish peeing. He's all walking through the woods, peeing as he's walking. He gets done peeing, he zips his pants up, and he begins walking further into this wooded area towards these hills. And as he gets closer, he realizes there truly is something unusual about these hills, because he can tell that one of them actually opens up into this massive hole that kind of slopes slowly down. So it's not like a pit he can fall into. It's actually a giant hole that he could walk around in. And it's covered up by like leaves and twigs. So he begins removing the covering of this very unique geological formation. He's adventurous. But here's the thing. It doesn't even have anything to do with curiosity. He keeps saying that he felt drawn to it. And there is something outside of him, something outside of natural curiosity that's bringing him to this giant hole. And he begins walking down this long, sloping tunnel. Never too steep, pretty level. He's walking through this tunnel, and eventually it opens up into this huge cavern. Where he's at, he's not so far down that he's lost all light. I wonder actually if he had a cell phone, because the story took place in 2024. I'm wondering if he's using his cell phone light. He doesn't really specify that, at least as far as I can remember. But from the light he has available, what he sees is these, what look like white, fuzzy basketballs attached all over the walls of this massive cavern. Of what he would come to quickly surmise were not basketballs. He was also dribbling them. They're spider eggs. They're massive spider eggs. He doesn't realize that at the time. It's good that he didn't try dribbling and he's all spinning around on his finger. Thousands of spiders are flying into his face. He's like, save me, Dennis Rodman. He's seeing all of these egg sacs all over the walls of this cavern, these massive eggs. And that's when he hears some shuffling. This shuffling coming from the ceiling above him. And he's kind of like, what? What in the world's coming? Again, he can make an educated guess. There's a bunch of spider eggs. He's like, oh, I wonder if that's a pigeon. He turns around, and that's when he sees descending from the ceiling a beautiful woman. Long, flowing, raven black hair, porcelain skin, big boobs. But that's I literally described the only parts of her that are human. She also has human arms. But anything above the waist, she's this beautiful woman. But below the waist, she's a spider. She has a big, black, hard spider body with giant spider legs. He's like, I'm not going to look at that part anymore. I'm just going to look at you from the belly button up. Is that okay? Half woman, half spider. Daryl is obviously shocked by this turn of events. He was just walking into a mysterious cave. He didn't think he was going to see anything sexual and repulsive. But that's when he hears a voice. A telepathic message beamed into his head. Don't be afraid, Daryl. It shocked him that it knew his name. I mean, the other stuff was pretty shocking too. The giant spiders, the half-woman, the telepathy. But he's like, how does she know my name? He said she spoke in a soft but commanding voice. And another interesting tidbit to this is one of the reasons why I love the paranormal. The Spider Woman was not speaking English. Daryl could realize the voice in his head was not English, yet he understood what she was saying. His brain was able to translate it. Don't be afraid, Daryl, was the translation, but he really heard this different language he had never heard before. Don't be afraid, Daryl, the Spider Woman said. You don't know what it's like to be a lady nowadays. Oh, Daryl, it's been so lonely in my cave. Oh, I'm so old and lonely, Daryl. So old, so lonely. But don't be afraid of me, please. Don't be afraid. And he did. He goes, she said, she kept talking about how lonely she was. He's like, hey, babe, that's kind of a turnoff. I mean, if you don't have a man by now, and you're ancient, I'm sure you've had a couple hunks over the past 500 years, or a couple chunks out of hunks, he thinks, because despite the fact that she keeps complaining about how lonely she is and how she's so old and she doesn't have anyone to spend time with, he realizes she's going to eat me, right? This is not Match.com. She's going to eat me. If I stay here too long, I realize that I am food to her. It's sad that she's lonely. I get it. But I'm not going to be your next meal. So Daryl takes off running out of the tunnel. Don't go, Daryl. Don't go. Don't solo. Don't solo. Don't solo. Don't solo. Don't solo. He runs out of the tunnel, reaches the surface, runs back to his car, drives home. Daryl ended his post by... This is super interesting, because he goes, I got away from this beautiful Spider Woman. I'm safe at home, but I sometimes still feel her. Sometimes I feel like she's watching me. I don't know how. I live in a different state. She probably has superpowers. She definitely has telepathy. I think she can spy on you. He goes, I don't know. I always feel like this presence is watching me. And sometimes I can feel her calling out to me. Come back to me, Daryl. Come back. Come back. Just for a visit. Come and see me, Daryl. I'm so lonely. And he wonders, should I go back? He posted this on the X board, and you had people, giving different advice. A lot of the advice was, where exactly did this happen to? I want to go out and experience it myself. They're like, I haven't had a date in a while either. A hot Spider Woman, I'll go check it out. People wanted to investigate this. They go, do you remember exactly where this was at? I mean, we'll go down there with flamethrowers. We're not going to take any chances. So you had people trying to figure out where it was. Another guy pointed out that Louisiana actually has a history of giant spider sighting. There's a website called Shuker Nature, which we've covered before on this podcast. They cover a lot of cryptid stuff, weird things. It's a website of Dr. Carl Shuker, and he does a lot of stuff about cryptids. And I'll post it in the show notes. He details a story, several stories actually, of a U.S. serviceman who was on duty in a place with these giant spiders, and a bunch of people in his platoon or at that base were either killed by spiders or driven mad because they saw a spider. I read the articles on that. I'm just going to post them in the show notes. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty much just this guy complaining. He's like, oh man, I have to do double duty again. Just because the general went mad, just because the lieutenant went crazy because he saw a giant spider. Oh man, I can't believe this. I have to drive the tank and sail the boat at the same time just because our battalion commander was eaten by giant spiders. it's a bunch of stories, but they're all the same. He's like, and then on Tuesday, a giant spider jumped out and scared the president. The president's like, that's it. I'm not running for office again. I read it all, and it did take place in Louisiana, so I appreciate the person on the export who sent it, said, hey, there's a history of giant spiders in Louisiana. I read through it. It's kind of the same story over and over again. I went out on a routine recon with someone else, and a giant spider jumped out and I chopped their leg off or whatever, and then we both went back to command, and that person never saw him again. They got a medical discharge. Obviously, they don't have a leg. And then the guy's like, then a couple months later, I was on another routine exercise, and I was talking on the radio to our sniper. It was like a war game thing, and the sniper's like, I got the best position. I'm ready to take out the end. No! It's just like complaining, oh, come on, man. You just get eaten by a giant spider. Don't give away our position. He's screaming on the radio, And then he goes in, we never saw the sniper again. And it's basically all of the... You're like, Jason, that sounds so intriguing. Why are you just kind of like... Here's my thing. I don't know. I read it and I thought, this guy is either the luckiest or unluckiest serviceman alive. Because everyone he goes out on patrol with is attacked by a giant spider. And they're about the size of a dog. They're not like the human-sized spiders like this queen spider, but I'll put it in the show notes. It just was kind of repetitive. I mean, it's giant spiders. You're like, Jason, how can it be boring? It's not boring. I just read it and I'm all yawning as some guy screaming for his life. Spider eggs are hatching out of his stomach. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, it's just this guy complaining now. He has to keep doing extra work because everyone... And at a certain point, I think I would be like, hey, General, do I really have to go on patrol with that guy? Everyone who goes out on patrol with that guy gets driven insane by seeing a giant spider. At best. Right? That's your best option. The other one is you're dragged off into the bushes or your leg gets ripped off. I'm going to join someone else's army. See you later. ISIS is hiring. Jump in a plane and fly over there. I'm not going to hang out with this guy anymore. So anyways, it was just the same story over and over again. They were insane in stories, but I basically summed them all up that way. So we do have someone saying on the export, hey, Louisiana actually has, and I'll put those articles in the show notes so you can read them. But I just summed them all up. Someone on the export says, well, you do have giant spider sightings in Louisiana, which is a weird coincidence, right? That these two stories written at totally different times, they're both in the same state. There could be something to that. These giant spiders. Now, what's interesting too is obviously the whole thing's interesting. I feel like I've glossed over the fact that there's a telepathic half-human spider somewhere in Louisiana who has these giant spider eggs. But it also harkens back to a story we did a long time ago, because I do really love giant spider stories. One of my favorite stories I've covered on this podcast, one of my favorite stories before I even started the podcast, was about the singing spider in the Paris catacombs. I'll put that episode in the show notes. I absolutely love that one. This idea that these giant spiders are able to mesmerize humans because we would be one of their main food sources. We're just so packed full of protein, and we're dumb. A wolf or an alligator or whatever would probably be a little bit smarter than getting entranced, falling in love with one of these creatures. But for humans, that telepathic call, and a lot of times a human's need for companionship, for physical comfort, that can also, in just non-paranormal life, we make bad decisions, right? You're like, this person's a bad fit for me, but if they're not with me, then I'll be alone, so I'm going to stay in this type of situation. People already do that without magical superpowers or telepathy or feel like you're being watched wherever you go. Well, that if you have a stalker, that can happen non-paranormally, but in this case, we can make bad decisions based on our own human needs. He feels like he should go back and meet this woman because in his defense, he goes, should I go back? She didn't do anything to him. She didn't kill him. He had a feeling she would, but maybe that was just cold feet. Maybe she did just want someone to hang out with. Maybe she did want someone to hang out with her in front of all of these egg sacs and just talk for a bit. That's probably not the case. I think now he's second guessing it, plus the allure, right? The attraction of this beautiful woman, as long as you look from the belly button up. You have that. You also have the telepathy in his head, right? Almost like mind control, almost like the singing spider of Paris. He's drawn, because originally he was just drawn to the hills, and you can also extrapolate that too was the Spider Woman drawing him in. He didn't make that connection at first when he was walking towards the hills, but now he can kind of put the whole picture together. Like, that's why he went there in the first place. This Spider Woman was drawing him closer and closer, like a spider does to a fly, until it's stuck permanently in the web. One person on the X board said, this is good advice, said, what you need to do is you need to tell your friends and family about what you saw, so they will think you are insane, and they will have you put in a psych ward that you cannot escape from, so you won't go back there. You are going to go back there unless there is something to stop you. You're already caught in the web. This thing is reaching out miles, hundreds of miles away. You are still entranced by this Spider Queen. And you may not go tonight, you may not go tomorrow night, but at some point you're going to be sitting at home and you are going to get up, get in your car, drive away, and you will never be seen again. Because she will eat you. Your best bet is to have yourself put into a lunatic asylum where you can't leave until this wears off. So tell the people you love the most about what you saw, and they will have you committed. It's a fascinating story. I love giant spiders. I love monsters, which a lot of cryptids don't really even fit into that. I wouldn't consider Bigfoot a monster, but a true monster, something that's sole purpose is to feed off of humans and has a monstrous appearance with just enough beauty to entrance you. And that was another thing people brought up. They go, it's possible that this was one ugly spider, and the human part of it, this beautiful woman, was actually an illusion. Daryl said it reminded him of a video game character, a character named Ulok from Dark Souls, which is a video game. So that's interesting because I've never played that game. I had to look it up. It was exactly what he described. It was just a woman with a spider body. But the point is that it could have been an illusion. It could have just been a disgusting spider that created this. Now, if I saw this same spider, it may have a spider body, but from the belly button up, it's Heather Graham. Right? Long flowing, beautiful blonde hair, amazing body, big, beautiful smile, Heather Graham. It's still a disgusting spider. I just see what I consider to be just like a super drop-dead gorgeous woman. And that's what the image would be until you felt those big spider fangs go into your stomach. The illusion would continue until it wanted to prepare you for a feast. It's all a trick. It's all a trap. Everything is a part of the web. Everything is set up to lock you in, to become food. And we'll end it like this. I thought it was really interesting. I didn't think of this. I'm not going to take credit for it. Someone much more gruesome came up with this one. Someone posted on the X board. They said, listen, this woman's going to kill you. The Spider Queen has one goal, and it's to feed off of you, but not necessarily for itself. The Spider Queen will paralyze you and keep you until the babies hatch, until all of those egg sacs open up and the spider babies come flooding out of it. Around that time, you'll stop being paralyzed, but you'll be webbed up. And you struggle to move, you can't fight. But now that you're awake, now that you have some muscle control, you're able to wiggle. You're able to jiggle. You're able to squirm. And as the spider babies begin to take little bites out of you, yummy, yummy, seconds for me, they're eating you. You can feel thousands of spiders crawl up your pant leg. And one of them's like sitting on your eyeball, and 10 crawling through your mouth to take a delicious little bite of your tongue. As you're feeling all of these spiders nibbling at you, you're squirming. And that is what spiders do to train baby spiders to eat. Apparently, according to this one guy on the X board, is that you're paralyzed, but then you start wiggling around when the babies eat you, and that trains the baby spiders that if it's wriggly, it's food. The spider could have had you paralyzed the whole time and just eaten you, and it had been completely peaceful. You're all sleeping, having little Snoopy dreams as it's eating your legs off. But no, it wanted you to feel pain. It wanted you to squirm. It wanted you to try to scream. It wanted you to be able to try to get away, but you can't. And that way the baby spiders are being trained. What is food? Food is the thing that wiggles. Food is the thing that squirms after each delectable bite. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if spiders train each other that way, but it's pretty scary stuff. I don't know if that's technically true, but maybe, because it's scary, right? If it wasn't true, it's still scary. And if it's not true, I wonder why that guy came up with it in the first place. But anyways, the point is that this dude's toast. If this guy goes back, no one's ever going to see him again. He's not coming back home. Maybe he's eaten by the giant spider queen. Maybe he's fed to her thousands of spider children. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd live a long and glorious life, standing alongside the Spider Queen. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a trap. He was never in any danger. All the Spider Queen wanted was a friend. It's hard being a single mother. The Spider Queen knows this more than any mortal ever could. And after decades, maybe centuries of solitude under the earth, she just wanted one person to say, I love you. I love you, Spider Queen. I love you, Queen of the Arachnids. Words she never heard before. Words she never will hear. Because everyone who meets her runs away. Just the sad Spider Queen, ruling over an empire of shadows and sorrow. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day.